Today on episode 3 of the Sean and Bo Show, an unlikely NASCAR driver wins the fan vote to compete in the Sprint All-Star race in Charlotte. Wonder how he did.
And yes, I'm here not to bore you with stories about California Chrome because, quite frankly, I just don't care.
Plus, the Pacers winning Game 1 against the Heat has filled Bo with absolute delusion about their future in the series. We'll make fun of him coming up.
Roy Hibbert, series MVP.
Get out of here. It's the Sean and Bo Show. Hey everybody, it's the Sean and Bo Show back once again for episode 3. Bo, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great today, finally getting some summer weather out here in the desert.
Now, you know it's a slow news week when you turn on SportsCenter and they have 20-minute pieces about tornadoes in Oklahoma. How long have they been sitting on that story for a real slow day?
Well, I don't blame them because you just asked me to come in on our show and I talked about how the weather was in the desert. I sound like a real jackass talking about sun in the desert.
Warm out there, huh?
It's real warm out there.
Now, one of the few stories around the NFL that actually did happen and is causing a little bit of surprise, not really for me. Brandon Marshall just signed a 3-year extension, and of course he did so live on the mecca of NFL broadcasting, The View. That's right. So Brandon Marshall got 3 years, $30 million. He's getting kind of old. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that move for the Bears organization, but I've always liked Brandon Marshall. He's actually donating $1 million of those dollars towards mental health awareness, which he's had a big part in with him being bipolar, and it's it's kind of cool to see him on a show like The View.
I have no problem with a Brandon Marshall.
No.
A guy like that goes out and takes care of business, and he's aware of what's going on in the community. You know, you'll hear us on this show time and time again. We're going to hold the guys accountable that are out there doing the things that they shouldn't be, and we're also going to praise the gentlemen that understand that they're in a position to not only represent their team and represent the Shield, but represent a lot of us Americans like you and I, Sean, that maybe have aspirations to help people. But quite frankly, I don't make $150,000 every paycheck.
We will hold people accountable, but I have to admit, I really wouldn't have minded a story involving a wide receiver at a nightclub with a gun. That might have given us a little spice this week. But.
Oh yeah. You know, we all sit here and we bash the negativity, but we're human beings. We love talking about that stuff. People don't go to the water cooler at work because they want to talk about how well they did on that Excel spreadsheet they just executed. They go to the water cooler at work because they want to talk about, did you see what Barbara was wearing? What does she think this is? Is this an office building or a nightclub? Because we love drama, whether it's our NFL players, our politicians, or Barbara at work.
Now, school's getting out, which means lots of rugrats running around your neighborhood. It also means that, well, we're in a really dry sports cycle. But
drive slow, homie.
For athletes, this is typically a time of the year where players improve, or at least I would imagine. I wouldn't know, but Bo would because he played Division I football. So during the summer, this time of the year, middle, late May, what's the typical athlete doing?
It's actually a very interesting time. Right now, there's a lot of R&R going on. You just finished up your spring ball. If you have one of the various networks that are out there, you've seen the multiple spring games that they put on. I mean, I get confused. I have to explain to my kids that it's not football season. This is spring practice. This is what they do at the end of spring practice. And, for a lot of people out there that don't live in college towns or necessarily maybe are an alumni at a university, they don't understand how big some of these spring games are. Because what you're seeing is your last finished product before you get around to the summertime. So, you work out in a gym, pushing iron, pushing dumbbells. It is amazing to me as an athlete. I used to go in there and I could lift, I could put up 410 pounds on the bench. I got up to about 585 on the squat. It wasn't too shabby. And, there would be a lot of guys in there that would just be so extraordinary this time of year. They're throwing weight around like, it's a redheaded stepchild. No offense to any gingers out there. But definitely.
Like your coach of the Cowboys.
Yeah, hey, man, don't be talking about him. He's not ginger. He's just red because he's mad. But anyway, this time of year on a college campus, a lot of the guys are doing what you would call like a cross training type workout. you're not going to put 600 pounds over your back. You're not going to put 500 pounds on the bench press over your shoulders because there's nothing to prove now. Everything that you needed to do to get to that size, you did it from about January until May. So now it's time to start thinking about, well, okay, this year coach said I needed to work on this. If you're a quarterback and you needed to work on your three-step drop, you're hitting that stuff right now. Everything's low impact, low contact, because this is the only time of year where the coaches really kind of let the college players go.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, most fans probably don't really know this. As far as like organized team activity, when are players like off? When do you not have to? I mean,
That's funny.
There is a time though, right? I mean,
yeah. I used to always calculate it, and I'd love to look up what the NCAA has. I mean, maybe next episode I'll bring that back. But I remember I would calculate when we'd play a bowl game, I would see a month off. That is no joke, 4 weeks out of the year. Any other time, I was either in pads or I was under a barbell, constantly running, conditioning. If you made it to a bowl game, you didn't get that time off. So it's kind of like a catch-22 as an athlete. Yes, you love the bowl games, but you really know that it's just a cash-in for the university, and you get to tell people, oh, I played in the bowl game.
What bowl games did you play in?
I was in the Emerald Bowl and the New Mexico Bowl.
Oh, New Mexico
Bowl.
The very
first New Mexico Bowl.
Oh.
If that's going to mean anything in the future.
Oh, your grandchildren are going to be so proud of you, Bo.
Oh, yes.
What are the gift bags like at the New Mexico and Emerald Bowls?
The Emerald Bowl, I ate more Emerald nuts that week
Those almonds,
than
right?
I've eaten my whole life. See, what made me upset, you could kind of compare it to your neighborhood crack dealer. They give you all these free Emerald nuts. You're eating them. They're so delicious, and I love Emerald nuts. Emerald, I have no problem with what you're doing. But I go to buy my first bag of them things, and I think it was $6. I looked at that and I was like, okay, now I know why they taste so good. But at the end of the day, what you're getting from Emerald is far better than any other peanut I've had. And yes, I am trying to position us, so if Emerald needs to spend any sponsorship, call us, please.
So no iPads, no iPhones, just a big duffel bag full of peanuts.
Now, what's funny about that is the money that's given to the coaches, there's in their contracts, the coaches get bonuses from the university, and that's all stipulated on how big the bowl game is and how much the purse is and all that good mess. But what ends up happening is the coaches get a spending allowance from the bowl itself. And depending on how big the bowl is, the coach could buy whatever. I remember one year the guy said the coach got him Sega Dreamcast. But by the time I had gotten into college, everybody had video game systems. And
right.
If he bought us something, we'd probably be offended. We'd be like, I don't play that. You should know. So, at the end of the day, he's just well, let me get him a watch. He got us a really nice $400 watch. It was really cool. And we got some nice jackets and all that cool stuff. But at the end of the day, Rocky Long, what I've always loved about him is he understood the game. He understood that 18 and 19 and 20-year-old kids, we want spending money.
Sure.
If we want anything, we'll go get a job to buy it. I can get a job in the summer. He was really good about if the NCAA allowed it or if he could find a way to bring us in to watch film or do something like that. And instead of giving us physical food, he would give us the money for the food. And that was within the rules.
Really?
Yeah. If you bring them together, if you bring kids together in the NCAA, you can A, feed them, or B, give them the payment for the food. So if you're Coach Long, I was going to feed them prime rib.
Of course you were.
I was going to feed them all prime rib, select potatoes, because Bo only eats the best potatoes.
Yeah, we discussed that last week.
Yeah.
If you didn't hear last week's episode, Bo's pregame meal, both horrifying and disgusting. But go on, Bo. Anyway.
But, it was
So we talking envelopes of cash?
Yeah, it was really cool because we would all get in a line. And it would go, based on who you were on the team, so starters up front and all that good stuff. And we would literally get a Bank of America envelope because they went over to the university's trust account, which probably has more money in it that you can shake several sticks at. And we're like, okay, we need to pay these guys for food. And they just hand you $120 to every player. And I was just like, this is great. So at the end of the day, when I hear people talk about pay for play and all that mess, they already do it. They found a way around it. So what amazes me is when the NCAA steps in, I'm like, well, why are you trying to mess up a system that's already working? Just give them the money without any trickery. Stop making coaches and player management figure out, well, how much did that bowl of rice cost? Because now we're going to calculate that into hard cash so these guys can go get some ramen noodles and a case of beer on their way home.
Right.
Because come on, man. When you're 21 years old, somebody gives you $120. You're a college kid. What are you going to buy with that? You're not going to buy food. You're getting alcohol. You're getting some swag.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because you know what you're doing? You're on your phone already before you got out of the building, hitting the parking lot. Hey, guys, we're done with spring ball. We got another 3 weeks until workouts get serious, and coach is handing out money for coming over to the campus. We were partying. So if you really want to know what's going on this time of year, low-impact workouts. All colleges are doing this. It's low-impact workouts. A lot of guys sitting around the pools, checking out the scenery, talking to the girls on campus. This time of year, the Jameis Winstons of the world, I'm worried about. Thankfully, he's playing baseball for now, but that's going to be over real soon. Hopefully, they get right into camp.
Well, okay, so I actually wanted to do this, but we'll limit it to the NFL just for simplicity's sake. Pick a team that will have the biggest arrest in the offseason. Biggest player arrest. And, whether all that we've had thus far, I don't think there have been any DUIs. We've got a couple failed weed tests. I think a domestic abuse situation that it was, God, and now I can't even remember blanking on the guy's name, but he was actually the one to call 911. It's like, it's kind of up in the air whether he was the victim or the abuser. But really, I mean, so far, there haven't been any big arrests.
A few weeks back when the federal agents, the DEA, finally raided a lot of the Colorado dispensaries, because if you are living on Mars and you don't know, marijuana is legalized in Colorado, not just for medical use, but for recreational use also. So I've been just waiting because I know athletes. I know the guys that I hang out with. If I was making several millions of dollars playing for the Denver Broncos, I'm sorry, I would open a dispensary. So I've been waiting for that. I've also wanted to see if the NFL has handed out any legislation, because a lot of times when things like that arise, because you got to think California's had these rules for medical marijuana for years. You're not going to sit here and tell me that not one San Francisco 49er, Oakland Raider has cashed in on the pot game. So that's what I've always been waiting for. I think Colorado gives the biggest potential because all those guys up there with new money, you got rookies coming in, you got guys that are probably coming from SEC schools. I'd like to pull up who the Denver Broncos drafted. They're going to hit the Denver airport and they'll be like, so you want to go by the stadium and meet the owner? No, I want to get some weed.
Welcome, new draftee. What's your favorite brand of rolling paper?
Yeah. Welcome to Colorado. You can have it. You can have it in a blunt, a bowl, and we have several ways to smoke. You can ingest it in food. I mean, they have candy factories in Denver just pushing out pot candy. So if I'm an athlete, which these guys start, record labels, shoe companies, pot, marijuana, that's right along the lines of that type of business. So I'm just waiting. That if you're going to give me one to pick, I would say Denver Broncos. Someone's going to get in trouble with either the feds or something with the DEA and the whole marijuana game.
Nah, I don't think so. I'm going Redskins.
Oh, my gosh. Nation's capital?
It's going to involve a gun. It's going to involve a gun.
Just don't involve Obama. Does he have anything to do with this?
He's busy, man.
He's busy, yeah.
So anything else going on around the NFL? Because I certainly didn't see any news worth talking about.
This one here, it didn't shock me. But when I read it, these stories always get me. A Tampa Bay cheerleader, she is suing Tampa Bay because she claims she was paid the $2 an hour. I don't know. We were talking something along these lines off the air one time, but they were interviewing some of the other cheerleaders around the league. The Raiders girls were saying they get $125 a game. And an industry that on a Sunday can clear a couple $1 billion. It is one of the few corporations in the United States that our federal government, the Department of Treasury, the Federal Reserve, gives them the ability to print their own money. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only a few organizations in this great United States that get the green flag to, oh yeah, you make so much damn money, you need to print it. That's what the NFL has the right to do. You're paying cheerleaders $125 a game? That makes me sick to my stomach. All the times that I sit there as a youth.
Those poor cheerleaders, Bo.
Will
somebody think about the cheerleaders for once?
Think about the cheerleaders. Like, as a youth, I would say they had a bigger part of me liking football than watching the Colts. I used to watch them more than I would watch Jim Harbaugh out there having a spaz attack trying to play the quarterback position. Oh, Jimmy Harbaugh. He was a classic in those days.
Well, so the NFL logic there is if you're an NFL cheerleader, you're just going to have so many opportunities for modeling, calendar shoots that you'll make your money. And I don't know if you knew this, exact same logic. Do you know how much the performers of the Super Bowl halftime show get paid? Wild guess?
I would say they're probably doing the dang thing for free. They probably
That's
get a gift
correct.
bag.
$0. They get tickets to the game. That's it. Because you just get so much exposure being in front of that many people that it's like, hey, if you're a band and you want to move some CDs, you don't really need to get paid.
I understand that, and a lot of that stuff works because at the end of the day, we all, there's a lot of people that bought into Reaganomics. It's the rich man's money is going to trickle itself right down into my wallet. People, that shit still hasn't happened. It's never going to happen.
I've had my wallet under the gutter out back here for months and got nothing trickling in there.
So many corporations, I'm still waiting for it to trickle. But what I'm saying is, being from Indiana, I'll never forget a buddy of mine saying, "Hey, you see that girl over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's very attractive." He's like, "You recognize her?" "No, she's a Colts cheerleader." I'm like, "What?" People, do you know where I was? I was at home for one of our weeks off to visit my family and friends, go to the lake, do all that mess for football season cranked up. I was in a local grocery store. She was bagging the groceries at the checkout.
Wow.
When I seen that, I tried to say to myself, oh, they can't all be in this position. But at the end of the day, how many people do you know that really call themselves professional models? And if you're not living in New York or LA, can you really be a professional model? So if you get stuck with the Packers or retirement community of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which last time I checked, Gucci isn't going to go to Tampa Bay trying to shoot an ad. They're going to New York. They're going to LA. They're going to Tokyo. They're going to London. If you get stuck in, which many of our NFL teams are, in middle-of-the-road cities, smaller markets,
Houston,
you're not getting these deals. I mean, maybe the local used car dealer is going to let you lay out on the hood of an old Camaro, and you'll get $500, but you're not going to pay for college on that kind of stuff. Come on, man. So at the end of the day, when I hear a story like this, that she's saying she got paid $2 an hour, Goodell, you need to get on that, buddy. You make $20 million a year. Yes, I'm angry. I'm upset. A man that makes $20 million a year can find out a way to get some cheerleaders, some benefits, maybe a decent salary so they can afford a studio apartment in one of these cities.
Do you think Jerry Jones pays those go-go dancers he has in the cages at Jerry World there? Do you think they get a Victoria's Secret credit to spend in stadium, or how do you think that works, little Jer?
I would hope so.
Some lotions, perfume.
You have companies like Ford on the side of these stadiums, AT&T, Lucas Oil. Don't you think those guys should be held accountable too? Because we get on them a lot of times for doing business with people that are a little subpar, the Donald Sterlings of the world. So why is it that they can go and clamor their name on the side of a building that's going to have a bunch of women dancing for free? Because everybody knows I've never seen a poor stripper.
Oh, you'll see some nice cars in the strip club parking lots when I drive by them. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to hear Bo Greer get real feminist real quick. If a female takes her clothes off, she can drive a Mercedes. But if she leaves her clothes on and dances for a $4 billion a year industry, she's broke. That is sad. And if I had a daughter, I would explain those things to her. And if you do have daughters out there, explain those things to her, because you have to watch out. The NFL should be an organization that is going to try and bring not only young men out of poverty, but bring some young women out of poverty too. And that's all I got to say about that. All right. Well, Bo's from Indiana. He's a big Pacers fan. He got real excited after watching them beat the Heat in Game 1, and he thinks they have a crack at this series. I'll explain to him why he's wrong, and also coming up, what the hell is a Dogecar? I'll explain. It's the Bo and Sean Show. Bo and I would like to hear from you. If you have any questions about what it was like for Bo playing college football, any random thoughts about the show, or any other questions, hit us up. The address, SeanandBoShow@gmail.com. That's SeanandBo show@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the Sean and Bo Show. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're celebrating the first victory of the Indiana Pacers. We're going all the way. You heard it here from me.
No.
And that's not a biased opinion.
No. You are delusional. They have zero chance.
How's that biased?
Winning.
Though? I mean, I'm not biased. I'm not delusional, because at the end of the day, Sean, I'm going to tell you this. We are designed to beat the Heat. I said it the first time we did this show. I think the first time we talked basketball. We are not a matchup for Atlanta. We're not a matchup for anybody else. Washington, I was surprised that we got out of there when we did. I thought that series would go longer. But when you seen that game yesterday, tell me, we look like the perfect team to beat the Heat.
No, you're wrong, and I'm telling you right now, them winning game one could have been the worst thing for the Pacers organization, because now you're going to have Hibbert going fishing after this game. You're going to have the same old unpredictable Pacers you saw in the first two rounds, and now you're going to have a little bit more confidence. That's totally not deserved, really. What happened in this game? Okay, yeah, the Pacers won 107-96. They had the high pick and roll in effect. They were scoring.
Rebounding. They cleaned the boards out.
Yeah, they did.
And that's what I think will continue. That's why I don't think they get beat, man. It's the boards. It's the fact that in those first two series, your man, what's his name, screaming the 300 quotes, he was abusing them down low. Gortat. He was abusing them. And then when it went to Washington, we were able to get out of there with the 4 wins a lot quicker because they didn't have a Gortat down there cleaning up the boards. I'm telling you, man, the Pacers are more physical. And, even though we had a lot of guys, Stevenson, I think, got 18 points. We had George and Hill.
And that's why you're not going to win. That's why you won this game, because all your starters were in double digits. You look at the Heat.
Yeah,
I think the only two starters that made double digits were James and Wade, 25 and 27 points, and then I think Birdman came off the bench for 15 or something like that. But all the rest of their starters had 5-6 points. That's not going to happen the rest of this series. Not going to happen.
Birdman, if you're out there for whatever reason trolling YouTube and you hear this, can you just send me an email and tell me what you're going to do with your body, your hair, your tattoos? Because my kids, I sit there the whole game. I'm trying to watch this game so I can talk about it on the show, and all I'm answering is, hey, Dad, who's that guy?
Birdman.
What's on his neck? Why is his hair like that? Oh, my God. I think when you become older, it's not that you get more conservative. It's just you get tired of answering questions for 7-year-olds and 5-year-olds.
That's an ugly-ass beard he has rocking right now.
The guy is terrified. But, what we were talking about here, the Pacers and Heat. People, when you watch game 2, understand, yes, LeBron is going to go off. Yes, Jesus, what's his name? Shuttlesworth.
Ray Allen.
Why do I remember that more than I remember his name?
It was a great role, man.
It was. Ray Allen, he's going to get his points, but this is where the Heat are exposed. Stevenson is just too young for D. Wade. And when I watch that game, it looks like an old man that's been beating his son at basketball or horse outside. And there's that one day where he's just like, all right, I got the old man against the ropes. I can tell his back's hurting, and he can't shimmy left and right. Man, one time, Wade.
I saw him in the bathroom with icy hot before we got out there. He's mine.
This is the type of stuff this is what it's all about. Wade, maybe he does have one more, but I thought his one more was last year. When I seen that last explosion he gave to help them, and when he got hurt again, I was like, this is about over for Mr. D. Wade. But just watch. He'll try and clear himself, do his little double, his dribble where he gets inside steps. He doesn't get the space from Stevenson that he used to get from guys that were twice his size. Stevenson can block shots. He presents problems for him. And I really think that's where the series is won and lost. I keep my eyes on what's going on with D. Wade, because if you can keep D. Wade under control, I don't care what LeBron and Ray Allen do and Chalmers, because the rest of the Pacers can match up with them. It's just D. Wade's that factor. Don't let him go for 36 or 28 points.
And we got game 1 coming up a little bit later, OKC and the Spurs. We're going to be firing up the grill for that one. But I don't see the Spurs making it through this series. Before today, basically, I thought they had a great chance, but now Tony Parker questionable with a calf. I think they have a couple more injuries. That old age finally showing itself.
But don't get caught up in that old age shit. I mean, I'm honest here. Like, I'm giddy if you can't tell while you're listening, but it is just. It cracks me up. Okay, we're going to talk about how old the Spurs are and how fundamentally they are, and they pass the ball 26 times before they take a shot. But, oh, yeah, when we get to the biggest series yet of the year, we're going to start releasing some little tidbits in the paper. Well, Tony Parker got out of his Mercedes, and he had a little bit of a limp. So we're worried about that in game one. Whatever. Don't ever fall into that Popovich. I'm going to get you thinking about who's hurt. Because that team right there, there's probably some guy that's in the D-League that Popovich called and said, hey, you need to be ready. Because you never know with the Spurs. They got guys on that team that are sitting on the bench that could be like the next big free agent deal a year from now because he's going to just explode in the Western Conference Finals. Now, I'm not saying he's going to beat Durant. I'm not saying that this guy is going to be the factor, but look for 7 games from the Spurs and OKC. That's going to be a 7-game series.
Nah, I don't think so. Spurs need some of that, a touch of gray. Maybe they can get a sponsorship.
No, don't get caught up in it. But OKC wins. OKC wins the series. I'm saying it goes 7. Pacers, if they win game 2, they'll sweep the Heat.
You're crazy, man. How do you expect these fine people out here to take you seriously on other topics after displaying such buffoonery about the NBA?
You listen, I will be biased when it comes to my teams, but everybody else, you can take me serious. If I'm talking Cowboys, I'm talking Pacers, yeah, I got the blinders on. But come on, ladies and gentlemen, 2 years in a row, you're going to tell me that Pacers fans and everybody else in the league who dislikes the Heat and who they are and the whole, let's do a show at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America before we put the big 3 together. Let's channel all that rage and anger. Get behind the Pacers, and I want to hear everybody across the world scream, beat the Heat. Beat the Heat.
Not happening. Earlier this year at Talladega, there was a real odd sponsorship happening with the 98 car, Josh Wise, sponsored by an internet currency called Dogecoin. Have you heard about this, Bo?
Yeah, you really clued me in on a lot of that. I did a little internet searching myself, and, I think that's a really interesting deal. I would love to find out how we could get involved with that show or something like that.
I'm way ahead of you, Bo. This is the reason why I've actually been tuning into a couple of NASCAR races. And just a couple.
Hold up, people. We're getting a new fan. I'm just going to lay it out like this. This is the way it goes. You watch a couple of NASCAR races, and you're going to realize Joe Rogan and everybody else in the UFC that's trying to fight racing, they're not just turning left. Joe Rogan, I have heard you talk about a Porsche that you own before because I love your podcast.
I think he owns more than one Porsche.
Yeah, I know. He better own more than one. If I was doing what he was doing, I'd own a couple. Take your Porsche out, cock the wheel all the way to the left, dump first gear, let all 380 horsepower hit, and see how hard it is to turn left. And, by the way, those NASCARs, they got a little bit more than your Porsche.
Leave Joe Rogan alone. Joe Rogan, he's never done nothing to you.
They kill me, though, when they get on there and those guys get to beating up NASCAR like, there's just a bunch of country people turning left. That's all they know how to do. You know what? Those same country people out there turning left are the same guys that are fighting in your UFC ring. A whole lot of my buddies who are racing on the weekends, every time I go home, I'm like, so he looks like he's in real good shape. What's he up to? He's fighting mixed martial arts. So the same guy that's willing to go 120 mile an hour on a dirt track with one safety belt is the same guy that's going to get in an octagon and duke it out knowing he's got to go to work on Monday.
I enjoyed watching. I got to say, I was kind of surprised because I was kind of thought it was, a simplistic sport like a lot of folks. But one of my favorite parts about NASCAR is if you got a nice surround sound system hooked up to your TV, they do that cool audio mixing where they'll pan.
Crank it up.
No, they'll pan the audio. Right as it passes the screen. That's pretty cool, man. It's kind of like an event just to behold these awesome machines going around. And if you like technology, like a lot of these Dogecoin people do, I think NASCAR really likes these new fans that are coming in because you have a very different demographic than ordinarily watches NASCAR. So what happened with this group, Dogecoin, on Reddit.com, is that they decided and I'm not making this up, I wish I was, a 16-year-old, 16, Bo, noticed that this driver, Josh Wise, was pretty good for an unsponsored racer. You know, he didn't have main sponsor on his car. That 16-year-old's name on reddit.com, Unicorn Butt Sex. So Unicorn Butt Sex organizes this massive.
Yes.
I wish. And every time they brought it up on like the NASCAR telecast, they just said a young 16-year-old Redditor. They weren't going to say the name. No,
that's
it.
it.
No, they weren't going to say that.
I don't even think they'd say that on ABC.
But
Fox.
this group decided that they were just going to crowdfund this driver. Cost something like $50,000 for a single race to wrap a car and get a sponsorship. So within like 10 days, this community, reddit.com/r/Dogecoin, raised the money. They raced Talladega. Josh Wise had a pretty impressive race. I think he finished ahead of Danica and some other big names, kept the car clean. And then this group decided, well, heck, if we were able to do that, I wonder if we could vote Josh Wise into the Sprint NASCAR All-Star race. And the way this vote was set up was unlimited votes per person per day. So you could just go buck wild. So that's what they did. They organized as a community. They had people voting thousands of times per day. And they did it. They beat Danica Patrick.
There you go.
And her fans were not happy about that, by the way. And they got into this race. So it happened over the weekend. He finished the race last among the completing cars, but hey, got some money for Phil Parsons Racing, his sponsor. And now the next thing that this community is doing is Josh Wise has said, hey, do you guys like those crew shirts we had on, those cool Dogecoin crew shirts? Well, we're going to sell them. And in fact, if we can sell 5,000 of them, and they're reasonable, they're like $25.
Well, I'll be looking for one.
If we can sell 5,000 of them, we'll take the profits and we'll put it towards a Dogecoin sponsorship for next fall's Talladega race.
Okay.
So as of this afternoon, they've sold, and this is in like the last 4 days, they've sold 4,345 out of 5,000.
You can put me down for one.
So
I'll definitely.
So look for that Dogecar sponsored by Dogecoin coming up at Talladega in the fall. And if you wanted to get one of those shirts, by the way, it's represent.com/Dogecrew, DOGECREW.
Yeah, save that one for me because, being a NASCAR fan, growing up in Indiana where racing is king next to basketball, I always tell people stories like this. I remember my track coach, Bill Niederhaus, great guy, would write letters to, he was not well known, but he had the coolest name as Buckshot Jones. He was a NASCAR driver named Buckshot Jones. He would write him letters, and this guy would send money for the track team and the cross-country team to go to, like one time, I remember one summer, the guys went out to Arizona to do like a race around the Grand Canyon or some stuff.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, whenever there's a cause, whenever there's something that needs to be paid attention to, the racing community has always been that community. And I would love to see for racing I think it's the 4th largest market share behind the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. I would love to see them step up into that forefront because there is a lot of drivers out there that do a lot of good things in these communities, and I think a lot of the other leagues could take a page from them.
Bo called me up excited the other day. He was a criminology major, and he said, Sean, I know who the Zodiac Killer is. So naturally, I'm intrigued. Meanwhile, we're going to check ESPN.com to see if any players have been arrested yet in the offseason, and we'll be right back. It's the Sean and Bo Show.
Thanks for listening to the Sean and Bo Show.
We need money, people. Gear, better gear, server space, gas, all these things cost money. And
help me, please.
Yeah, Bo's driving all the way across town to talk to you fine people. So we don't have any sponsors just yet, but we would love for you to be the first one. Bo, how do they contact us?
You can get a hold of us at seanandboshow@gmail.com. That's seanandboshow@gmail.com.
SEANANDBOSHOW@gmail.com. Same handle on Twitter. Hit us up. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's episode 3 of the Sean and Bo Show. Bo was awfully excited because he thinks he might know who the Zodiac Killer is. Bo, what are you talking about?
Well, if you don't know yet, I was a criminology major. I'm very interested in, major crimes. What really gets me going are these guys who are able to elude authorities for long periods of time. And one of these cases is the Zodiac Killer. I believe it was around 2004. There was a movie made, and a lot of the younger generation, our generation, who didn't know who this guy was, they were kind of clued in. And for you out there that don't know about the Zodiac Killer, it was basically a guy in Northern California in the late 60s who murdered, I believe it was 4 people.
I think there was always a question of how many people.
The actual, it was 4, but it was suspected there were 34.
Well, he claimed
he claimed 34, but
I think he even sent a newspaper some little pieces of bloody clothing because he was trying to insinuate that there were many more people that he had.
Yeah, he did the bloody clothing, and also he had started there in one of the last murders where the gentleman who actually ID'd him survived. It was because he would always get these couples while they were out, getting ready to get busy, 1968 style. You can imagine there might have been some temptations going on the old. Did they have 8 tracks then, or what was it?
Not yet.
It was just radio, right? So you got the radio going, you're tuning in, and I don't even know who's on the radio then because I'm only 30. But he would just come walking up on these people and straight up stab them, tie them up. And, it was one of those things where he started taunting the police officers by writing letters into the newspapers and saying, I'm this guy, I'm killing these people. And what was very eerie about it, he was sending these encrypted notes and with these zodiac symbols, the ciphers. So
it was like a puzzle, right? And there you had to kind of figure out the way to decode the message, almost like one of those things that used to be in comic books, the secret ring, kind of like that, except from a killer.
It was very popular at that time because people still listened to the radio. They were into that stuff. But so what happened? Fast forward many years later, a gentleman, Gary Stewart, Louisiana native, I believe, is contacted by his mother, finds out he was adopted and didn't know much about his mother and father. And she goes on to tell him that she was a preteen. She had him and was advised to give him up. So she gave the actual baby, which is this gentleman, Gary Stewart, who found all this out, to his father, who he suspects to be the Zodiac Killer. And he placed Mr. Stewart on someone's doorstep that ended up raising him. And now he's a very successful business owner. I believe he's some sort of engineer. So he has the money and time to devote to this. That's why I believed it. Usually when these stories surface, the person has
some wacko,
it's a wacko trying to get their 10 minutes of fame. This guy is a very successful person, people. He doesn't need our money. He's in the oil game. You've paid for gas. But anyway, Mr. Stewart starts doing some digging to find out who his birth father was. And with the publisher and the independent team of investigators, they start to unravel that his father has these string of arrests in the early 60s, and he's doing these petty crimes around Northern California. And so anybody who was alive at that time, it'd be like not knowing about the Kennedy assassination. The Zodiac Killer was a big deal because people were afraid. They were terrified of this man. And he believes his father was this gentleman. Now, it's one thing to make an allegation like that, but as I explained earlier, in one of the murders, there was a young gentleman and his girlfriend at the time were at a makeout point, a popular spot.
Lovers Lane.
Lovers Lane, And, I could just hear the music in the background, where, all that
T-birds everywhere.
Yeah, all that
Chrome.
good stuff. So he comes walking up on them and proceeds to stab both of them. Well, he survives. The young gentleman survives. And they do this sketch, the old school composite sketch at the police department. And when you put a picture of this gentleman's father, the Earl Best, who is suspected Zodiac Killer, you put him next to that police sketch, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen it yet, Google it, find it. It is eerie. It is all the way down to the glasses, the lips, the hair. I believe, I'll say it right now, I believe they found the Zodiac Killer. And I believe that things like this is how you're going to find guys like this.
Is the guy dead?
Yes, he died in 1984.
Okay.
Yeah, so, he's basically scot-free, but, and, the shame of these types of deals when you study criminology, you look at sociopaths, this is what he wants. He's alive again. We didn't know who this guy was.
Right.
The reason they write the letters to the police departments and the newspapers is because they want to be celebrities. The worst thing about assassination attempts is that you ever notice, ladies and gentlemen, when it's an assassination attempt, we never know their name. There was 4 gentlemen when Barack Obama was elected that were stopped en route to Denver to the Democratic convention.
Yeah.
With high-powered rifles, scopes, to where you could shoot somebody a couple football fields away. Naturally, Secret Service FBI assumed they were going to try and execute the president. We don't know their names, but you know Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right. Yeah,
A lot of people tell me who shot Reagan. A lot of people that cannot name him because he did not succeed. So what I always say is like, it's like this catch-22. I'm enamored. I'm all giddy about, the Zodiac Killer's been found. It was his long-lost son who, discovered this. But now this guy is a celebrity. And to every other nut job out there, now he believes he can be a celebrity like this Earl Best is. Earl Best Jr., I believe is the name.
See, that brings me to my favorite criminal that has evaded capture. I think the fact that there hasn't been a feature movie made about this guy is, I just don't, Hollywood, what are you doing? D.B. Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
This
Without
is
a Paddle was the closest. That was the closest thing. You ever see Without a Paddle?
No, was it major?
No, it wasn't even. And that what was funny about it. I remember the group of guys I was watching Without a Paddle with. I believe it had like.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, it's a comedy, but.
Oh, it's a comedy?
Yeah, it's a comedy, and basically these friends, after one of their friends passes away, get together to bury him, and they go to complete what they had wanted to do since they were kids. They grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so they wanted to look for D.B. Cooper and find the money. And so it was funny because being the criminology guy, I was always into the crimes. I was the guy in the room in college. I was like, this is cool. It's like, they're looking for D.B. Cooper. And everyone's like, who in the hell's D.B. Cooper?
Well, yeah, for people that don't know the story, I'll fill them in real quick. And without actually checking my facts, I'll just recklessly spout this story as I remember it. Okay, so D.B. Cooper, he goes on a plane. He presses the call button. He tells the stewardess, I've got a bomb. I want money. They land. He gets $200,000, I think, in cash. And they take off. All of a sudden, he's out the back of the plane with a parachute with the money. Didn't hurt anybody. No one ever found out what happened to him. Some people have found little weird bindles of money out in the Pacific wilderness, but no one's ever found D.B. Cooper. And it's like, man, that's a movie right there. How come that's not been made, you think?
It's one of those deals. I think Hollywood is so damn afraid to make this movie. Because if it messes around and grosses $200 million and D.B. Cooper's out there, DB's coming. Because the statute of limitations ran out on that case 12 years ago, buddy. So, DB, if they do make a movie about you, come get your money. Because all these other jackasses out there, Prison Break, Without a Paddle, I think American Dad has done it. You could go through a slew of movies that have hinted to be like, oh, this guy's D.B. Cooper. So if you're out there, DB, until they actually make the movie about you start to finish and your name's in the title, they can't pay. They don't have to pay you. So if they do ever make that movie, DB's coming forward. He's going to come out of the woodwork for that cat.
Well, it's not like that's going to be his real name.
No.
So
it's not his real name, but it's who he is. Now, what's interesting is how do you prove something like that? Do you show, this is how I jumped out of the plane?
This is the interesting thing to me. The UFC fighter Chael Sonnen?
Okay.
Big-time trash talker.
Yeah.
He was on the Rogan.
He hates auto racing, by the way.
He was on the Rogan podcast a long time ago. This is an old episode. And he said that his dad knew D.B. Cooper, that it was this guy in the neighborhood who all of a sudden one day just kind of disappeared for a while. And his dad said that he had found out that this guy had taken skydiving lessons and motorcycle lessons, yet didn't really tell anybody. And it's what kind of person takes, nowadays we live in the world of Facebook and Twitter, so you can't eat lunch at some nice restaurant without telling everybody you were there. But what kind of person takes skydiving lessons and doesn't say to their friends, hey man, isn't this cool? I'm learning how to skydive. Yeah. So he kept all this secret. He was learning these weird skills. And as Chael put it on the Joe Rogan Experience, what he did was he hid a motorcycle out in the wilderness, so that when he parachuted down, and this was, by the way, this was the land that he had grown up on. Every summer as a kid, he was out hunting and fishing in this land, knew it like the back of his hand. So he hit a motorcycle out somewhere, parachuted, knew the land so well, he was able to find the motorcycle, and all of a sudden, you're gone. You're right back into civilization. And Chael had said that they noticed later in his life, all of a sudden, he started to buy cool little toys, RVs, boats, stuff like that. That his income, he didn't make much money, through his professional life. So it's kind of like how is he buying a new 4-wheeler and a new boat every year? What the heck's going on? And it wasn't until Chael Sonnen's dad was on his deathbed that he finally told him.
I think that's the one that you sent me in an email, right?
Yeah.
I was watching a little bit. I just got a little bit of that, and I heard the story about him growing up on the land. And when I heard that part, that's what kind of sealed the deal for me because, you're not just going to drop into the Pacific Northwest. I mean, I've heard Joe Rogan talk about meeting Survivor Man and him staying out there in that part of the country.
Right.
You better know what you're doing if you're out there. So, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're not going to get me, I've heard so many stories over the years about what people think DB Cooper was or who he is. He was a defunct, CIA agent that was angry about the condition of the country. Come on, people, get out of here. Those guys who went to Harvard and make it into the CIA and FBI are not parachuting out of planes and getting out of the wilderness, with a bag full of cash. That's not what they do. This guy here, I would love to meet him, and I think Aaron Hernandez could have took some advice from him because how does this guy with no money hijack at the times, which was, I believe, Northwest Airlines flight?
I don't know.
They were very profitable. You hit them up, disappear, and he has no money. That's what I don't get is how can you orchestrate this? I wouldn't even think. I think it was the first plane jacking. I mean, I might be wrong on this, but do you ever remember a hijacking before the DB Cooper story? This guy had a pure thought.
No, what year was it?
They did that in.
I'm looking. 1971.
In 71, you're thinking about taking a plane. This dude is on a whole nother level, Sean. I mean, come on. DB Cooper is not a normal cat. He didn't have a job at a Rite Aid.
Probably not.
You know what I mean?
Not.
He had to stay in he lived in a cabin in the woods because society probably pissed him off. I mean,
or he just wanted $200,000 for his retirement so he could buy 4-wheelers and boats.
Hey, you know what? $200,000 in that time was a lot of money, but damn, when inflation hit, I bet he was a sad sucker. He's like, damn, that $200,000 is not going to buy a lot. What is that? Maybe a Corvette, a 4-wheeler, and you're looking at about $60K left over after that. I mean, come on, man.
All right, well, game one, OKC and the Spurs about to start. Bo and I are going to fire up the grill and watch this bad boy. So we'll see you next week. Tip your pizza man.